Well, good afternoon. It is 3 o'clock, and you're so welcome to today's Room Junkie show. And I'm particularly relaxed today because it's always lovely when my guest is somebody that I know. So this is somebody that I know and respect and like and have huge time for. Her name is Breffnie O'Kelly. She is a little bit different. She's a personal property finder. Sorry, Breffnie. Personal property finder. So she's not really into selling houses. She's into finding the right house for you, which I think is fascinating. She's a member of the Institute of Professional Auctioneers and Valuers, and her passion is for helping you find a property, your property, the right property for you. Breffnie O'Kelly, you are so welcome.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's a complete pleasure to be here. And I was thinking before I came on that actually you and I are in quite similar positions in that people who buy a house and need to have it designed are often feel underwhelmed and lacking the knowledge that they need to get this thing done. And they're often putting themselves under pressure and shoulds. I should do it this way. There's a right look to have, etc. And I think it's a bit the same with buying property. People they find it overwhelming. They put themselves under pressure to be doing smart things. And there's also a fair bit of information that to the person who does it every day, like you or me, it's in our heads. It's at the top of our tongue. But for someone who only buys a house or refurbs a house maybe once or twice in a lifetime, it's not at the tip of their tongue. And it's knowledge that is worth, well, it can feel overwhelming if you don't have it, really, is my point. Absolutely. So it's quite similar.
It is actually. Anne Latif is here. Hello, Anne. Anne is over in Birmingham. Jane Canning is in Dublin. She said, hi, Anne and Breffnie. You just made me think of something that I've never consciously thought about before, Breffnie. It's, well, you've probably thought about this, but it's another reason why somebody should hire you. If that person who doesn't have a vision, who can't see beyond what they see, walks into a property, and yes, they might think, yes, I love the road. This is where I want my kids to go to school. But the house is awful and I won't have the money to do something with it. You will know whether they're going to need to spend a huge amount of money or whether the paint and powder will actually make this house more than presentable.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And what I find, there's two things there, Anne, I'd love to talk about. One is the work that's needed to be done. Okay. And the other is just walking into a house and the viewing. So I'd love to start with the viewing bit of things, because in my experience, buyers can overwhelm themselves by looking physically. Now, I know not in this climate because we can't physically look, but in general, I think buyers can overwhelm themselves by looking at too many properties. And I would suggest that time could be better used getting to know their budget and their areas, really getting super clear on those before they ever physically, and doing drive-by viewings of properties before they ever physically walk in to view a property. So just before anyone sets up a viewing for a property, I think that they should know for sure that they can afford it. They should be sufficiently up to speed with what the bidding levels are in this area right now.
Can I ask you something there? Do they need to have contingency as well? Because particularly in Dublin at the minute, prices are on the rise again.
Yeah, they are.
Areas. Yeah,
for sure. And what I'd say is last week I just did a comparison. I looked at 10 properties that I'd gone out to view and was actively bidding on. And I looked at what did they go in terms of asking price, below the asking price and over the asking price. And in general, they went for about 5% over the asking price. And that's a chunky percentage, especially the particular client I was looking for last week was buying, his max was 350,000. So you'd be looking at prices asking 295,000 and they'd be going sale agreed in some cases at 370, but in most cases at 345, 350. So there's a huge demand, especially in the lower price brackets.
Okay. So,
but just on the point, you know, the last time, Anne, you said, you know, knowing if there's such a thing as a bit of how much work is to be done. A key thing that people might look at when they're looking at a property that may not be presented in beautiful condition is to really pay attention to the floor plan, because the floor plan shows the functionality of the house. And for example, if you know you definitely want a kitchen that you can eat in and have meals in, and the kitchen on the floor plan that you're looking at is long and narrow with no room at all, well, straight away you know that you're going to be knocking a wall and you're into work. Or if you're committed to having a bathroom upstairs and the floor plan shows no bathroom upstairs and not really much room for a bathroom upstairs, you can move on from that house. Sometimes it's as handy to rule a house in or out as it is to rule it in. Just look at the floor plan and say, that house does not flow correctly, as in the rooms don't flow into each other well enough. And can I just give you one more example of a house that doesn't flow well? I was looking at a house out in Carrickmines for a client, and I had a look at the floor plan before I went out, and I realised that there were about, although there was a huge big downstairs, there was loads of square meterage. The kitchen was in a very small room and it had about 5 doors opening off it. So you just know straight away that kitchen is never going to feel peaceful. You're going to have to move that kitchen straight away. And also you could see that there were landlocked rooms, that you'd have to go through one room to get to another room. So straight away, that's not good. That's not valuable space if you have to walk through it, one room to get to another room. Maybe? Yeah, walk away.
Walk away. Okay, a few of the girls are coming in. That's great. Don't be shy. And if anybody has got a question, Breffnie is more than able to answer any question that you can ask her. So currently at the minute, Breffnie, say I decide tomorrow I want to move back to Foxrock. I can't afford to buy back my old house, but I'd be happy with a smaller house. And I ring you up. What can you do for me under the current situation?
So the first thing I would do is get you clear to know, are you actually buyer ready or not? And so the first thing by that I mean is, have you got your proof of funds in place? So you might be deciding, yes, I would love to buy in Foxrock, but I need to sell my house before I do. Or I would love to buy in Foxrock and I'm pretty sure I'd be eligible for a loan if I applied. But the first thing to check is, are you in a position, if you saw tomorrow the ideal house, could you buy it? So that would be the first conversation we'd have, is just, are you actually a buyer or are you a would-be buyer? Because a lot of times people, like even yesterday, a French woman was on the phone to me, happy to book me, but she actually hadn't got a loan approval in place yet. So that's the thing. Just firstly, are you a buyer? Are you ready to buy this house?
Okay, for argument's sake, I'm a cash buyer, so I'm ready to buy.
Okay. So then what I'd say is I'd talk to you about your minimum needs, e.g. how many bedrooms, minimum, not for preference, because I think this is sometimes where people get stuck. They have their needs and their preferences, and they sometimes think that their preferences, they can match all their preferences, and often they can't. So what I try to do with my clients is get their minimum property needs, which is, what is the minimum number of bedrooms that will work for you? What is the maximum budget you have ready to spend? What is the location that works for you? Now, sometimes people don't have a precise location, but e.g. for you.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because this brings me back to way back when we came back from Bermuda, we decided we were going to live in South Dublin, and we drew a line from Killiney to Booterstown. Was that a bit crazy? And I can tell you, I know every single road and every back road between. We had rented a house in Killiney, so we were familiar with there, but we were more keen to be in Blackrock, Foxrock, that sort of area. But was that too much of a trawl?
Well, I think it might have been too much of a trawl. And here's just one thing I might say to a client. Yes, you might be open to buying between Killiney and Booterstown, but have you a preference? Have you any kind of preference at all? And if you have a preference, e.g. your sister lives there, or you like the sea, or you like the mountains, or just anything, let's just start with anything, because very often your heart makes the decision in the end anyway. You say, yes, technically I'm open, but actually when it comes right down to it, you say, you know what, I actually love the sea. I want to be by the sea. So I try and get a sense of what are your basic needs, and then what's your preference. So I do think it's worth saying, right, I'm open, but where will I start? If I could buy it tomorrow, where would it be? And I don't know, was Foxrock your preference, or
No,
were you
no.
were
I
totally
fell in
open?
love with the house, even though it
Yeah.
was a wreck, but it was a good wreck to fall in love with.
Mm,
No, we had actually sale agreed on a house up on Killiney Hill Road,
mm,
which I had set my heart on, and it was a
mm-hmm.
couple who had separated and then they reconciled, and we just felt morally we couldn't,
No.
we just couldn't do it. No.
But in terms of preferences, Anne, sometimes it is the location that is people have a preference for. It's 15 minutes walk to the school.
Yes.
That's the key thing. But sometimes it's the type of house. Like I had a client who was he was open from Rialto to Bray. And it was the house he was going to fall in love with. That was going to be his single biggest thing. So there's no right or wrong, but it's just knowing your heart. And for you, it was obviously, you were someone who was going to fall in love with the house.
Yes.
So was that client. But other clients aren't people who are going to fall in love with the house. Obviously, they need to like it, but maybe the house needs to work for them primarily. Like, for example, I have a client who's just closing on a property today that she's buying because it's within 15 minutes walk of the school. That is her key single reason for buying. And that comes back to your motivation when you come to talk to me. What's your motivation? Why are you doing this in the first place? Because people have different levels of motivation. You wanted a charming house in Dublin, I'm assuming.
Yes, with a garden. It had to be detached because I'm a country girl. There were lots of silly things that we wanted. West-facing garden. We probably should have gone south-facing.
I love west-facing. Southwest is ideal, I think.
Do you know, Breffnie, when we moved into that house, this is hilarious, because we'd come back from Bermuda, we'd no furniture, we pumped every cent we had into that house, and we moved in, and we literally, my mother bought us a kitchen table and chairs, and we'd no furniture, so we went to Arnott's and we spent a fortune on garden furniture, and we spent that summer in the garden. That is the truth.
You know what, I think that might have actually been an absolute plus for you to spend the summer in the garden firstly, but also not to be buying your house dependent on your furniture. I have clients moving home at the moment and they are looking for something that will accommodate their gym equipment. Now, honestly, in the long term, in 5 years' time, will you be happy that your gym equipment has been accommodated, or will you be happy that you've bought in the right location or a decent kitchen? Yeah. So sometimes our furniture can be a distraction. You probably were giving yourself a nice clean slate there to start in the garden with the garden furniture.
Actually, a little useless piece of information. When we left, the house has been sold by auction, and it actually made the front cover of the Times, Breffnie. I cried when I saw that. And it certainly wasn't money that put that house together, because we didn't have it. Miriam,
congratulations.
That's a long time ago. Miriam's asking a question. Hi, ladies. Is it better to sell at auction? So is it about to sell or auction a property? Now, we sold at auction because it was kind of an unusual house. It worked really well for us. It doesn't always, does it?
No, I think that my gut response to that is that most people feel more comfortable buying by private treaty. So if you have a house that's reasonably standard, as in the location, you might find plenty more houses similar to yours, I would say private treaty sale is the way to go, as in not by auction. But if you've got a house that's particularly special, like unique views that no one else is going to have, or a connection directly to the seafront, or something, or an old schoolhouse, or something like that, that might that might be so unique that you'd command a premium for it at auction, then yes. But remember, auctions put some people off. A lot of people are frightened by buying at auction. So you will probably narrow your audience a bit by selling at auction.
Although one thing that was good, everybody who bid or were coming to bid, they had their survey done and proof of funds and all of that. And I think on the day, it was actually Sherry Fitzgerald down in Dunleary, on the day, I think the guy who bought our house paid a deposit on the day, and we decided the closing date. Am I right in saying that, or was that unique to us?
You could have, yeah, you could have.
No, we definitely did, because it was very fast. Because I can remember feeling so bad. A friend of mine had gone off to France on holidays, and our house was sold before she came back, but I hadn't told Janice because I was afraid of jinxing everything. Yeah, it happened really fast. So it was really, really good.
Yeah, so I don't really think this is a hot buyer's market. Private treaty is effectively acting like a hot auction at the moment. The bids are jumping so quickly, and with online bidding, it's debatable what is actually the difference between an auction and the private treaty system of slow motion auction. So by selling it at auction, you're doing a fast auction, which can scare some people if it works.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, okay.
And if it doesn't, yeah, you're left with a property that hasn't sold at auction, which is a certain stigma.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you something there and it's gone out of my head now. Yes. Are you in the know? Do you know of, or is it just a country thing, of properties that might be coming on the market before they officially could, so that if you were working for me, you might be able to have a conversation with somebody to...
Yes, to some extent, but honestly, it's not something I hold out as a key thing, a key service I offer. And probably there isn't a week that goes by without someone telling me there is a house quietly for sale off market. But it is rare enough that property exactly meets the needs of a current client of mine, because I just work with a maximum of 4 clients at a time on a personal finding service. So
it's very personal, Breffnie.
It is, yeah. But I like that because it gives me time to talk to the client. And I feel like everything has enough time for the right job to be done.
Okay. So going back to current times, are people buying without seeing properties?
Yes, and various agents have different approaches. So there are 3 different approaches I've come across in terms of agents and people buying at the moment. One is people absolutely outright buying without ever setting foot in the property. And my clients often do that because they're buying from Australia, they're buying from America, they're buying from England. They physically can't anyway.
Can I tell you something without mentioning any names? I think this is lovely. How small is this world? One of my clients who pops in here quite regularly, you actually found a house for her son. Can you believe that? Yes. So I'm not going to tell you who it is, but isn't that incredible? And how small is that? Yes.
Very small world.
He was in Australia as well. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I think I might know who that is. So that's one scenario. People buy. So anyway, they buy because they can't view it. The second scenario is some agents are, if the house is empty, they are letting the bidding get to a certain level, and then they might allow the agent or one viewer go in, a spaced apart, having, when the bidding has got to a level that the vendor is happy to accept, the property is now what we'd call on the market. The vendor will take this price or any higher price. So when it's got to that level, the agent will allow a viewer in. Now, technically that shouldn't happen, but it is to some extent happening if for empty houses.
For empty houses,
yes.
It kind of makes sense, yes.
Yeah. So that's second scenario. And the third scenario is that agents are putting the property for sale and just taking names of interested parties because they're thinking, we don't want to make this property bidding go up and up and up and up and up, and then the person who has bought it and is who's gone sale agreed on it walks in the door of the property and says, oh, I don't like it, and the bidding unravels. Like I was talking to an agent the other day who the property was asking $320. The bidding had gone up to $370. She had done the deal at $370 with that bidder. The bidder goes in and says, I don't like it. So now she goes back to the underbidder, who, as it happens, was bidding on another property at the same time. So that underbidder wasn't there at the bid of $365. So the bidding unraveled all the way back to the starting point. And I've seen that twice this week. When the sale agreed walk through, the bidding unravels. Gosh, now, it doesn't take long for it to build up again.
Of course, absolutely, because the demand is there. Here's something, Breffnie. You mentioned this to me before, and I wasn't aware of it. David McWilliams had an opinion or a report about 30-somethings who I would have thought would have been, like, I know we bought that house in Foxrock, we were both, I think, 31, 32. And that's around the time when most people think about buying their first home. And they can get a mortgage and they've got lots of time to pay off their mortgage. And why is he saying hold off? And what's your opinion on that? I'm more interested in your opinion, really.
So I think the reason why David McWilliams was saying that people in their early 30s should hold off buying is because he's saying this is a super hot market, and he's right. There's 24% less stock for sale at the moment, and there's 24% that much, yeah, and in some cases less, even a higher percentage. So there's that level of decrease in supply, and then there's 24%, as it happens, more loans being approved at the moment. So it's like the absolute opposite. So there's more money chasing fewer properties, which everyone knows.
People are saving more. They're not changing their cars. They're not going on holidays.
Good point.
They're still earning what they always earned. They're still getting their bonuses. So this money is just sitting there.
Yeah. So David is saying that we're in a really hot spot at the moment. The market is super heated at the moment. And he's right. It is. And he is saying that the buying market is superheated and the renting market is deheated. There is less heat in the rental market. You can now get, let's say you were spending 2,000 euros a month on rent last year versus this year. You'll get more bedrooms, more house, a better spec and a better location for your rental money now.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
why
sure.
Is that, Breffnie? Why?
The reason why is because a lot of the workers have gone back. All the Googlers and the Airbnbers and the Amazoners, a lot of them have gone back and working from home. To mum and dad. Well, they've gone back to mum and dad, or they've gone back to Brazil or back to Spain or back to wherever. So they've actually just left the country altogether in the first lockdown. So that's a key reason. There's a lot more supply in the rental market now. So the heat has gone out of it. So if a 30-something-year-old can hang on for 5 years, they'll be 35. Let's say they're 30. They hang on for 5 years, they're 35. They still have 30 years to pay off their mortgage until, say, 65 or 70. So the heat will have gone out of the market and they can have rented a nicer house while they wait. So that's David saying that. That they're the key reason he would give, and you couldn't argue with it. Except I do slightly argue with it. Good. Because it means you make it all about the money. He's focusing purely on the figure that a person is paying for a property, but there are many reasons we buy property. There's financial, there's emotional, there's the heart, there's just the physical ability to knock down walls, to start getting to grips with your property, to make it your own, to do physical changes to it that you can't do to a rental property. And there's a spiritual reason too, which sounds a bit bonkers, but we generally have all of these four motivations when we're doing anything, whether or not we know it. And what I feel is that if you're 30-something and you want to start a family, or you want to just start nesting, yes, you might buy it for less in 5 years' time, though we don't know for sure, because look at this crazy world. We can't assume anything. Look at Trump, look at COVID, look at Brexit, look at all these huge, big macro shifts that have happened in the world. Wouldn't we be crazy to say, I'll wait 5 years to rely on something happening? Because what can we rely on happening now? Not too much.
I think you're right. Carpe diem, seize it. I see Sharon Dooley is here. She's saying, what is she saying? Hi, ladies. Love the red on you, Anne. Oh, thank you.
I agree. I love it too.
My color. It's my color. And she had said yesterday, life is for living. It's for making decisions now, not waiting, because none of us know what's going to happen down the road.
Precisely. And owning a house gives you a different sense of connection to a neighborhood. You feel like you're a stakeholder. Your neighbors, to some extent, are likely to treat you a little bit differently, because if you're living in a house that's rented, they'll have seen, oh yeah, that's the house that's rented, and they have it filed that way. Whereas if that's the house that's our new neighbors, that's a different connection. And that's important. So we tend to focus a lot on the price we pay for a property because that's an easy thing to measure. But actually, there's a value in nesting. There's a value in connecting to the neighborhood. There's a value in having this decision made and freeing up your mental space from thinking about it, freeing up the time you spend looking at it, freeing up the conversations you have talking about it. All these things have a value that we can't put a figure on, but that are valuable.
That's interesting, and it's not something that many people will be thinking about. Sharon Waldeck is saying, "Hi, ladies. No questions today, but there's lots of people there watching and listening, which is great." And I've just thought of something else. My phone is ringing, and you know what? That's somebody now that I've been in touch with, maybe a guest for next week. Very interesting lady as well, media person. I just realised something. You are obviously, or are you? If say I wanted to rent, say I decide I'm not going to buy in Foxrock, but I might like to rent in Blackrock instead. Can I talk to you about that? Can you find me a
Definitely. Yes. Definitely. And I find a lot of clients, like I'm working with one set of clients at the moment who are moving home, and they got in touch with me originally actually to find something to buy. But I was saying, you have never lived in Dublin. It's probably a much better idea to find something to rent first and just get your bearings, see where the children's friends are, see how the schools are working out, see how your life is stacking up. So rent somewhere first and get a feel for it, and then buy. So yes, I find property for people to rent as well, Anne. And a lot of the time I'm useful to them in terms of timing. Like if they need to be home on the 1st of September, when should they start looking? What are things for, I work with actually a lot of embassies because they have a lot of nomadic staff.
Actually, where we lived, an awful lot of our neighbours were they were embassy people. Yes.
Yeah.
They came for 12 months or whatever, and they usually settled there because of the schools. It was a French school in Foxrock, and a lot of the kids went there. A few questions coming in. Susie is saying, should you put your house on the market first prior to finding something else?
Definitely.
Sorry, this.
No,
yes.
Definitely, I think, because it's a bit like, Anne, you were saying, what would I do for a client in terms of helping them? Like, it's exactly what Susie's position is in. Because if she were to find her ideal house tomorrow, could she buy it? No, she couldn't, because she is not in a position to fund that house. I'm assuming she'll have to use the proceeds of the sale to fund it. And that might work in a property market that is falling, where an agent who's so happy to sell a house will work with anyone who wants to buy it, including people who are subject to sale of their own house, including people who are subject to sale. Whereas this is a hot market. There are more buyers chasing properties than there are properties to buy. So the person who is the cash buyer is going to be the preferred buyer. The loan approved buyer is going to be the next preferred buyer. And the person who's got to sell a house before they can buy this house is going to be much lower down the chain, because there's more things that have to happen before that person can sign a contract. With the cash buyer, there are less things that have to happen. The cash buyer can just sign a contract. They don't need to have a bank valuer out. They don't need to have anything done.
Susie, that's a fantastic question. And let me tell you too, now is the best time. Springtime is the best time. Your garden looks great, your house looks great. And if you go back over my videos over the last 12 months, you will find one or two on how to stage your house for sale. Because let me tell you, doesn't staging work, Breffnie?
Absolutely. And you were asking, we were talking about earlier, is how do you assess how much work to be done or not to be done? Very often people get seduced by a lovely cushion and a lovely finish and don't pay enough attention to the layout of the property. So staging works so well that I think that if you don't stage your property, you are leaving thousands on the table. Yeah, you really are.
It's a reason why the show house in any development sells. Any show house that I ever designed sold first. It was sold while it was still being used as a show house because people could walk in, they could imagine themselves living there. I can remember when I staged the house in Foxrock for selling when we were coming back to Donegal, and I deliberately had a couple in my mind and a family, and I had the house never looked better than it did when that auction sign went up. But there was no doubt in their mind that they could imagine living there, and this was their perfect house. So Susie, you've got a bit of work to do. Big declutter, staging.
Yeah, decluttering. I so agree with you.
Agent now.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, talk to the agent now.
Not sure where Susie is, but same rules apply to anybody. Here's a very interesting question. God, I'm sure I wished I knew the answer to this many years ago. Hi, Breffnie. What's the best way to negotiate a price in the final stages? There's a big one.
In the final stages, are we buying?
Say you're selling for $350 and I'm coming in at 330, 335 or something like that. And I presume Jill is the one who's selling, or maybe she's the one who's buying. So maybe how to get the house for the best price, or or what do you negotiate?
You see, again, it's worth just to zoom back again. It depends on the kind of market you're operating in. In a falling market, you can imagine if a house is for sale okay, we're in a rising market, but in a falling market, if a house was for sale for 500,000.
Jill's a buyer. She's just come in to say that. Jill's
okay,
a buyer.
okay, so she's a buyer. So she's a buyer. How to negotiate? So what I would do is I would check how many bidders are against you. Let's say it's...
How do you find that out?
You ask the agent. Yeah.
Like, for example, obligated to tell you?
No, they're not. They don't have to tell you, but they will always come back to you. Once you're in the bidding process, the agent will come. Let's say, I think I'm sorry, I forgot her name. Jill, is it?
Jill, yeah.
Jill, did she mention a figure, 350? Did you?
No, I just said that.
You just said that. Okay. So firstly, we have to acknowledge where you're competing against people. The chances are you're definitely going to be competing against people. So now, how do you use your money wisely? So there are different approaches to bidding, but here's one approach that might work for her. Let's say, to use your figures, Anne, of a property that's selling for 350 and the bidding is at 330. And let's say Jill has a maximum budget of 340. That's all she can go to. And there are quite a few other bidders there. She's asked the agent and the agent says, yeah, actually there's 3 other bidders there at the moment. What I would do if I was Jill is I might consider going straight away to 340 rather than going up in increments of 331, 332, 333, and everyone gets to chip in a bid. I might say, I'm prepared to go to 340 anyway. I've done my research to show me that this house is worth 340. By bidding 340 now, I'm packing a punch with my 340. I'm getting a bit of a scary factor in. Whereas if I just let myself get bid up by the other bidders to 340, I'm not really getting any extra woomph for my bid. Have I made that point clearly enough? Jump the bidding. Jump the bidding is a suggestion.
I have experience of that. When we moved back here, my brother-in-law found a site for sale with a really, really good site. And it was pretty expensive. And I can remember Neil said to me, he sent me over to my mother with the 3 boys. And he said, I'll ring you when it's done. It was actually a telephone auction, which is unusual. And the bid went, I can't even remember what they started at. And Neil said, right. He took a deep breath. I wasn't there. And he went, bump.
He went right up there.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're going to the comfort zone anyway. You're comfortable spending 340 and you can only spend 340. So that's that definite thing. You're using a bit of a scare factor. You're scaring the other people away. And there's a bit of a mystery factor.
Scared me too.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah, it is scary to do that jump. It is. But you're also kind of putting that mystery factor out there. God, if they're prepared to go to 340 now, what else are they doing? And people might just go away.
Okay, that's interesting. Jill, I hope that has answered your question. Kate Blaney's got a question. Kate, it's a very interesting session, ladies. Breffnie, what got you into this career? I don't know the answer to this.
Well, the property, I was working as a selling agent for DNG and loving that. It's a super busy job being a sales agent, as we all know, and I had to take time off to be a mum for a bit. So I was on my year of time off being a mum when I got a call from a friend of a friend who said, you don't know me, but I was given your name by such a thing. I am a busy barrister. I'm separating. I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. I need to find somewhere to buy and I haven't got the time to find it. Will you work with me? And I said, yep, I'd love to. That's about the right pitch in terms of my availability of time. And I don't know what to charge you. So let me Google what buyer's agents charge. So I Googled because we didn't have any buyer's agents really. So I just Googled what do American buyer's agents typically charge. And we agreed a fee and that's how I got started. And then one client led to another client to another.
It always does. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's how.
So what did you study in college, Breffnie?
French and English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I did. But then during the boom, Anne, we got like loads of people. We did a lot of property stuff. Like some of it was successful and some of it was not successful. And at the time I was thinking, right, I need to get serious about this. If I want to be successful at this, I need to know what I'm doing. So that's when I went back to get my license. I had been buying properties, doing them up and selling them on, that kind of thing.
Oh, I didn't know that, really.
Yeah. Like
Good
in
for
one
you.
case, the one was a cottage that had no running water, and I had to get the seventh son of a seventh son to come and find the
No
water,
way.
which was, yes, a water diviner. Have you worked with them?
No, never.
Yeah, it was a really interesting
Oh,
experience.
I know here in Donegal where people need to have wells on their, they will
Yeah,
have one, go out and
yeah.
find the water.
And that's what I had to find, was a well. I had to find a source of water to
Good
then
luck.
sink a well and put in a pump. So I was doing that. So we did some good deals and then we did some not good deals. So I just thought, let's get real about it. And that's why I went back to get my license.
Gosh, well, now, Kate, that wasn't the answer you're expecting. That's amazing.
No.
Yeah. So you're a property flipper as well.
Yeah, that was such fun doing that. I have to say, it's to be repeated.
You know what, it's a good thing to do. And if anybody has the appetite for it, it is a lucrative thing to do. I know. And, you know, my biggest regret, I remember, because I was always the one out looking for the houses. And there was a beautiful house down in Sandycote. I can't remember where. But it was one of those 3 or 4 story over terraced houses.
Oh, yes.
In rag order. And I was almost afraid going in, and I was afraid birds might be flying around. And I just said, no, not interested. And you know what? I was so sorry afterwards, because the potential there, and I would have had the stomach and the appetite for it. I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have now. But but it is a really good thing to do. Kate, it's a fascinating story. It is, Breffnie, it is. Any other nuggets? Some of the girls said they're learning loads here. And that was from way back before you got stuck into it.
Oh, well, if I was to say anything, you know, if I had a real urge to say to people is, in general, I find that when people come to me, they are overwhelmed. They're putting huge pressure on themselves to buy at the right time, to buy the right house. They're just they're looking at too many properties. What I would say is, decide for you. Is it the right time for you to buy? Can you get a loan now? Do you want to buy now? Why do you want to? Get really clear on why you're doing this. And if it's true for you, then don't bother with what your David McWilliams says or what anyone else says. Do what's true for you. And I would also say, narrow down the areas you're viewing in. Really narrow it down to 3 areas where you can afford to buy, the number of bedrooms you need, at the maximum price you can afford, and in locations that roughly work. Just find 3 locations. And then of those 3, start to look in 1. Just start with 1. Because like anything, you're going to become an expert on what a 2-bed house costs in Crumlin. And you're going to get totally used to that. And if that doesn't work for you straight away, then you know Crumlin's not my space. Go to somewhere else. So just don't look at too many places. Don't look at too many properties. Just find 1 area where you can afford to buy that suits you and concentrate on that. That would be real key advice, I think.
Okay, and apropos of that, say I decide I want to live in Crumlin and I want to live in this road. This house is maybe a little bit smaller than the one I wanted. Would I be better off going for that rather than going for a bigger house somewhere else, which is not in the area that I want to be in?
Yeah, we've only got so many levers to pull when we're buying property. There's location, there's size, there's condition, and there's budget. They're really the 4 levers we can pull. And in my view, the location lever, you should give it 70% of the power, because you can't change where the house is, but you can always design it well. You can go to Anne and get her to make it work really well for you, but you can't change the location, and it's the location that's going to make you happy. So I would say always go for location over size.
And I would totally agree with you there. And when you're selling, if you're selling on as well, location is going to be the most important thing. No matter what you've done with the house, the location will determine a lot. Just thought of something else, Breffnie, that I think is really important from a happiness perspective. Are your buyers or your lookers, are they attuned to aspect of the house? Do they realize how important the aspect of the house is?
No, they don't.
No.
They don't usually. And But it's funny, Anne, I would say that aspect is something I'd put on the preference list. I wouldn't put it on the absolute minimum needs list, because usually we're going to have to do some compromising. And sometimes you might discount a north-facing house, because just for anyone who's not clear, in general, a house that faces south at the back is always the better location. South or southwest, with west coming second, I would say east coming third, and north coming fourth. And when we say facing, we're always talking about which way the back of the house faces. But sometimes I've found that people say, we don't want a north-facing house. And I say, why don't you? Because it's going to be dark. And I say, okay, I agree with that. But look at what work they've done to the house. They've put in skylights in the extension. They've brought the light in. Look how long the garden is. Even though you won't get the sun in the close to the house, if you go right down, like I'm looking at a house at the moment, it's north-facing, but the garden is so long that it will get the west-facing sun at the back of the garden, because, as we know, the sun moves around, or we move around more so.
Do something in a smaller garden, the south-facing light, you're going to lose a bit as well if it's a very short little garden.
Yeah. So yes, north-facing isn't great, but if they've put in skylights and they've made it a bright house, then it's a bright house. Whatever way it's facing, it's a bright house. And if the garden's long enough, you might get the sun in the evening anyway.
Okay, gosh.
Which is when you can use it after work.
That's right, absolutely. Or they could flip the house, put the kitchen in the front of the house if they wanted.
Yeah.
No, I'm just checking to see, because sometimes I miss questions, but don't think so. No, I think we're doing okay. Time-wise, we've gone way over time, Breffnie, so I hope I haven't messed you up there.
I'm thrilled. Thank you, Anne, for
Oh, good. Are you going out
taking
cycling for the afternoon, or are you going back?
No, I had a gorgeous day cycling yesterday.
I know
I am getting ready to do, actually, I have a coaching call next at 4:30. People often book 1 hour coaching sessions with me, and that's actually what I've got next.
So listen, tell us, Breffnie, what exactly do you offer people? Before you go, let us know that, and let us know the best way to get in touch with you as well.
So I work 3 ways with people. One is I find it for you. I just find a property to buy or to rent. So that's one way. And I work with a max of 4 clients at a time. So I've got loads of time. The second way is a coaching session. And well, it's advice really. So people might get in touch with me if, like this afternoon, the people who've booked a call with me are in the same position as, actually, I think it was Susie. They were wondering, should they sell before they buy? Was that Susie?
Yes.
Well, that's the scenario that I'm talking about this afternoon. Say one last week was we're looking at 2 houses. Which one should we go for? And in my view, there was no brainer. Run a mile from this. A complete no-brainer. I couldn't
tell us why.
believe.
You don't have to tell us what house it was or anything, but I'm curious.
I'll tell you why. One house was situated right beside a railway track, right at the level crossing. Now, admittedly, it had access to the sea, which was lovely, but it was right on a level crossing. It had double yellow lines outside it. So it was under pressure from the sea at the back, from a train at the front, and from double yellow lines at the front. So no one who's coming to visit them could park anywhere close to them. And I was thinking, yes, I understand it's lovely to have sea access, but holy Lord, that is just under pressure, that house.
Too big a price to pay. Yeah.
Too big a price to pay. And the other house was up a hill in your place, Killiney, and lovely views, under no pressure. And it was no question in my. I was really surprised that they had an issue seeing.
And they had the beach beside them. They had Killiney Hill for walking. They've got the Dart.
Yeah.
What would you want? Yes.
I know.
It's good schools as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just that, or another case, I have someone who's wondering, should she move from Cork up to Dublin, a single woman, just not sure, just wants to think it through. So they're the kind of people who book a session with me. Then that's on Tuesdays.
And that's invaluable, because this is brand new to them, so they don't know, they haven't a clue. They're brilliant at what they do, but even the guys in Killiney, not to be able to differentiate between the 2 houses.
Yeah.
I do this with not with interior design clients, but I do with new builds, because oftentimes they have it's the overwhelm that you described.
Yeah.
They have all these decisions to make, and their head is fried. So they'll book in for an hour or two. We'll go through it all. They can call me back whenever they want, and it's all done, dusted, and they just can't believe it. It's as easy as that. Wow. Well, that's amazing. I am so glad, Breffnie, and really, because I put you on the hop, because all my guests this week were asked at verylastminute.com, because I didn't think I'd be able well enough to do the lives, but thankfully I am able. And I have another fantastic guest tomorrow, Sinead Sharkey Steenson. Breffnie, I'd love her. She is she's a leadership coach. She's a very strong business background. She's an advocate of women, particularly in trying to stop us being apologetic for ourselves, stop us talking ourselves down. She's into pulling ourselves up, getting our confidence, rocking the career ladder. She's on a mission. She's a woman on a mission. She's actually an amazing she speaks internationally all over the world. I've heard her speak. So that's going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be fantastic, because I know a lot of women, and some of the girls here have admitted to me, and we talked about this yesterday, that since COVID, their confidence is down. They've been out of the workplace. They've been homeschooling. They've barely put on a bit of lipstick all year, and they're just in a funny headspace. So
in a funny headspace, yeah.
So this week has been great, because yesterday I had a model and she's a plus size model, and she has plus 7 kids. I know. Yes, she's unreal. If you saw her, and she's just so amazing. So she was working on her headspace yesterday, and you've been doing all of this with a property, which is so valuable and stuff that people just don't know. And Sinead is going to be working on careers tomorrow.
Fabulous.
Boring all interior design on Friday. But it's all good. Breffnie O'Kelly, thank you so much. I really, Teresa Halliburton is saying, very informative. Thanks, ladies. Yes, you're getting lots of thumbs up there. Breffnie, that was just amazing. So I don't want to take any more of your time, because you want to prepare for your clients. But thank you so very much.
Thank you.
We'll catch up very soon.
And keep well. I look forward to that. And keep well. And your course sounds fantastic. Your course sounds brilliant. I think anyone should buy an interior design course. Honestly, from
some of the girls here are doing it. Even though I say it myself, yes, it is. It is great.
Yeah.
I even have there's one girl in Cork, Kerry actually, who said she's been doing a professional interior design course, and I was so chuffed. Mary said she has learned more from mine.
I have too. I've been looking at your course.
You know it all, girl. You know it all.
Well, I really think it's so important, because imagine the price of the course versus a bad sofa. It's like a no-brainer. The price of the course versus a bad rug, never mind. Yeah, exactly. Versus a bad rug.
Absolutely. Jill O'Brien is saying thank you so much. And Jill, you know where to get Breffnie. The best way to contact you, website?
Probably my website, Anne, breffnieokelly.ie. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. I'll put the links here anyway later on today. So listen, go get ready for your clients.
I will.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Anne.
You're so welcome. So tomorrow I'll be back with Sinead at Mara Dixon is saying, brilliant, Anne and Breffnie. She was the one who thought your tips were amazing earlier. So yes, back at 3 o'clock tomorrow with Sinead Steenson, and then I'll be back on Friday at 3 with a live Q&A. So it's over and out. Stay safe and stay fabulous, and I'll see you here again at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And our huge thanks to Breffnie O'Kelly.
Thanks, Anne.
You're welcome.